Welcome to the Better Business, Better Life podcast with Stuart Wilkinson and
Dave Jags. Sorry we've missed a week or two. We've been a bit tied up, but we're back. We're back.
You're right, Dave. We've been 2 weeks now, and we've had a gap since our last one. So today's subject we've picked on is it's Mental Health Awareness Week here in New Zealand, and so we thought we're not going to go into kind of the depths of managing mental health because we are no experts on that, but we're going to lean very much heavily into Dave's background in personal training and his experience there to, I guess, talk more of a high level of well-being. And I guess we all know, and we've all heard stories, especially over the last 3 years, where for business owners, there's been a lot of stress in life, whether it's pandemics, whether it's supply chain issues, whether it's staffing issues, whether, the list we could be here for a whole podcast talking about the ups and downs of the last 3 years. But your well-being as a business owner has been tested, and there's no doubt that obviously has effects on your business in indirect ways or direct ways, depending on the way you look at it. So I think today was just sharing, I guess, some of our own personal stories, but also stories we've heard and also, I guess, as I said, Dave's background. So I know, Dave, you probably can introduce this better than me. You're the expert on not well-being, but you've been in the industry of well-being for a long time in the sense of physical side of it, and the importance that is for a lot of people to their well-being is doing physical activity on a regular basis.
Yeah, so I guess for me, the journey started when I first started out as a very green PT, and I kind of had these wonderful kind of illustrious ideas of, I was going to be turning people into these muscle-bound freaks or whatever the hell they wanted to be. Do you know what I mean? And I very, very quickly realised that was far from reality. And the truth was, for a lot of the people that were coming in, unless you could actually help them kind of centre themselves slightly, the fitness side of it was a little bit here nor there. So the fitness became part of their routine. It became part of keeping them kind of centred and generally happy and healthy. And actually the byproducts of regular fitness were the kind of, they were bonus extras, the losing weight, putting on muscle, generally being a bit fitter. So it very quickly changed, and for me it kind of it totally shifted the whole business model of beyond of how we were going to send it. It kind of went from being this personal training, very much goal driven, into actually it was more about creating a community and accountability and a place where people felt they belonged, because that's where you'd get that regularity. And then if people were coming regularly, then they'd start to generally, I think as a rule of thumb, they'd generally feel better on a day-to-day basis. So it was interesting. And I guess I got lots of outlets or insights into how different people kind of worked and utilised health and wellness or exercise as part of their health and wellness. I had people from accountants, lawyers, insurance brokers, council workers, nurses, doctors, a whole spectrum. And it was really quite an interesting scenario, to be honest.
So Dave, you mentioned obviously you went in as a green-eyed PT going, I'm just going to create, these machines, but was there a particular client, or was there just a series of events that led you to go, actually this is, obviously, fitness and people being good about themselves in that sense was part of it, but actually this is more about them as a person and their well-being and not just putting on muscle. Was there a couple of things that kind of led to that transition or thought process change?
I had a few clients for the entirety of my kind of fitness career, so 10 years, so they were with me the whole way through, and actually there was a few people in that bracket, and I kind of always jokingly mock one of them, who I'm still in touch with now quite regularly, is that I've actually taken over 140 kilos off him. Yep. He started at 120. But we just did this wonderful yo-yo, constantly up and down. Go through a real good spell, feel great, run a marathon, then they disappear off the face of the earth as work got busy, things became stressful, put all of this weight back on, and then we'd do the process again. And I kind of realised this is totally pointless, what we're doing right now. It wasn't pointless from a point of view of he was paying me regularly and I used to thank him for that. But from a point of view of we weren't really creating healthy habits. Actually what we needed to do was we needed to create this healthy routine which would help him manage his kind of workflow, which would help him then kind of manage, you know, the mental health and all the other things that went with it. So we had to kind of create these little things, and it was kind of non-negotiables. And we used to call it first things first. Yeah. So it's like, what is like
that?
well, it's the things that, you know, we've spoken about time blocking diaries and stuff like that before.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've spoken about it on the podcast, but it's a similar principle. It's what are the non-negotiables that have to go in your diary on a weekly basis? What are the things that have to go in your diary on a daily basis? And they have to be put in. So if you're saying that exercise releases endorphins, generally makes you feel better on a daily basis, well, it has to go in your diary. And if you can't guarantee that you won't overrun on meetings or it won't get booked over, it has to go first. First things first.
So it has to be the first thing that you do that day. You know,
it doesn't have to be the first thing you do that day if you can guarantee that you can keep it free. So say, for example, you get a guaranteed lunch break from 12 till 1 and you'll go to the gym. That's fine. But if you can't guarantee you will get that time, it has to be the first thing.
So that could be, I know that I've got a couple of meetings, they're meaty, and there'll be some conversations post that sort of thing, or I've got a big client discussion which is an hour, but it quite easily could be two, whatever. We have that.
Yeah.
You know, you're saying in some ways, Dave, okay, I've got to make time that maybe I've got to drop the kids off at school, but then after that, that's my first thing. Whatever it might be. You've got to prioritise yourself.
Yeah, you've got to actually create the opportunity for those things. So it's like, so if you can't guarantee the time slot in your day, then you need to get the thing that's important to you, or the most important thing, done first. Now, like, I think it's really important to think, like, that kind of well-being side of things, it doesn't necessarily mean exercise. It could be meditation.
Yeah, true.
Do you know what I mean? It could be going for a walk. It could be doing something that helps you to feel like grounded and centered. And I guess this is where my shift as a personal trainer really changed. And I went away from the real cliche kind of fitness PT route. And I went more into no, wait a second. What do we actually need to do to help you from a well-being point of view? So it doesn't have to be exercise, but does it mean getting up and going for a walk along the beach in the morning? Does it mean getting up, sitting outside and having a coffee just so you can kind of like, it's like actually prioritizing the important things to you and then ensuring that they have that time slot within the day. So that was where this like first things first came from. So it either gets the first priority in your diary, as in it goes somewhere that it can't be booked over, or it goes first in the day to make sure that nothing can go over the top of it. So I've got 2 kids. I've got a 10.5-month-old and a 3.5-year-old. Once I've walked in that door at home, I do not get a chance to breathe until there you go to bed. And bedtime can vary from both in bed knackered at 6 o'clock to I'm wrestling the 3.5-year-old down at 8 o'clock. Yeah? I like to point out
Sounds very familiar, Dave. I'm
not running I'm not running it solo, and you know, my wife's there helping. But I can't guarantee I'm gonna get to do exercise at that point.
Yeah.
So
it's part of this day, because it's part of this day because, you know, I think most people who have regular listeners to the podcast know me and Dave have kids exactly the same age, so we have these little moments in the podcast. I'm like, I know what you're talking about there, Dave. Is, you know, if we think of business owners, they are the business. There's a lot of responsibility, staff, customers, the whole shebang. There's family, you know, and I guess what your first sort of point here, Dave, is how you prioritize your time is kind of the direct relation, because I think it's very easy for us to go, well, as you said, like once you get home from work into dad mode, well, it's not like, you know, sorry, I'm off for my half an hour run like that. You know, it's just life doesn't work like that. But it's actually going, well, I still need to do that, but I've got to work out times and not negotiate on that, because I think it's very easy to go, oh yeah, but I've got to follow up with that paperwork, or I've got to follow that supplier, or I should really phone Carl, my staff member, about something. There's always something else you could be doing, but I guess it's actually protecting that time in your diary and understanding that time is just as important as you doing work, because it leads to better work outcomes most likely, and family outcomes probably as well.
Yeah, definitely. And you've actually just got to set some rules around it, and people need to understand them, because believe it or not, you set rules and you explain why, and it doesn't matter whether it's your staff members, your reception team, it doesn't actually matter who it is, as long as you set clear boundaries as to why you do it and explain it. I think 9 times out of 10 people will actually respect the reasons that you do it. So I trained a very high-flying lawyer, and he had 3 exercise slots in his diary every week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. They could not be booked over. They could be moved. This was the rules for the entire law firm. They cannot be booked over. They can be moved, but they cannot be booked over. So they could be moved within the same day, but never booked over. And he just used to walk out, go to the gym. And he learned that lesson. He learned that lesson the hard way. But he's like, I am a better lawyer for doing this.
Yeah, and that's the key thing. Is
And
like,
like-
is, you know, this adding to your success is part of this. This, you know, you're refueling the
Yeah.
tank, aren't you? Really?
Yeah, and he didn't hide it. Very public knowledge. Would go get changed into his gym gear, walk out, see you in an hour, guys. Go to the gym and come back. Like, so he
That's
kind
cool.
of took that whole thing away from it, and they'd be like, oh, that's cool. But then as a byproduct, his teams would start taking the time to go to the gym 3 times a week, or taking the time to go out for a run, or go for a walk, or do something that was good. And that actually just creates a productive workforce.
Yeah, agreed. Because
Do you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be the gym. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be that. It can be anything. But actually setting the time to look after yourself is important.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you can't look after anyone else unless you look after yourself first.
Well, it's always you manage your plane. You must ask yourself first before you help anyone else. Doesn't it? That's the whole story.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So what? So with that, Dave, I guess is what are, through your experience, what are common signs that behaviours or whatever that people maybe need to relook at how they're prioritising their time? What is some, you know, we hear this term burnout, you know, a lot, which can mean a lot of things for different people. It can mean, I don't think personally on my always say, I think burnout gets confused with, it's not working lots, it's actually getting to a point where you are overwhelmed and cannot actually function properly in your job. So it doesn't matter if you're working 80 hours or 40 hours or whatever, but if you're burning out with whatever, it might be the activity, whatever. But what is it that people need to start, and everyone's different, I get that part, but what are some common themes and stuff that maybe people who listen to the podcast go, oh, that's probably thinking that's something I've got to think about?
yeah, I don't, maybe potentially a bit above my pay grade, but I think you tend to see people like making a lot of excuses for subbing out. I'm too busy to do that. Potentially a bit volatile to situations that they shouldn't be. Like for me personally, if I get angry in the car or get annoyed with someone when I'm driving, I know that I'm not in a good frame of mind. That's like literally the truth. And it's like, I don't have road rage or anything like that, but I'll be like, oh, come on, what was that about? And then I'm like, no, you just like worked up. Yeah. So I think everyone will have their own triggers, but I think what's more important is what you then do about it, to be totally honest with you. And, you know, it's just like looking at your business, working out, you know, what to do next or where the next opportunity is. It's actually highlighting the things that are important to you. So 9 times out of 10, I'll hear people go, that's it, on Monday, I'm going to eat well and I'm going to exercise.
This week
Like,
is going to be a different week.
It's just like business. There's no specified goal in that. And you're trying to change everything in one go. So you're going to fail. I will tell you that now. If you tell me that, it's not going to happen. However, if you turn around and say, right, on Monday, I'm going to do 3 pieces of exercise next week, and you put it in your diary, and that's all you change, you'll actually do it, because it's only 3 things. Yeah? If you think about tackling all of your eating and exercise, you're talking about changing 38 things. Yeah? Breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner, plus exercise on top of that. That's not going to happen. But you can start by putting in 3 pieces of exercise. Or you could start by going, first things first, most important thing of the day, breakfast. I'm just going to start by ensuring I eat a healthy breakfast every day. Because you get into the habit of that, and then the week after you're like, cool, got breakfast down, I'm going to change lunch. You know, just tackle one thing each week. But you do that for 5 weeks, and suddenly you'll have changed an awful lot. So it's kind of like just little things constantly. Because then you'll get the sense of achievement, you'll get into a routine, and before you know it, it's like all those little things have turned into a massive, massive shift. It used to be one of my biggest battles. I'd have a client come in and they'd be like, motivated.
I'm here, Dave. Do your worst. I'm up for this.
Rip shit and bust. Let's do this. So you're like, and actually, my first job was to like calm down. This is a long journey. It's not a quick fix. And let's start with one thing. One thing, they've kind of got their eye on where they're going, and you're like, nah, we've got to do this like the long way, because if you actually do it the long way, that's when you make the big changes.
Yeah, and it's part of this, Dave, as you said, like starting small, but also, whether it's three pieces of exercise a week, make sure that's in the diary. Is part of it. Is in a work environment, which has probably got a bigger sense of impact and discussion. Is what are the things that I feel personally are pulling me away from maybe my priority of fitness and stuff, because I think we're all busy being busy in some ways, and some of that's good and some of that's how we discipline our time and stuff. So it's part of a genuine habit change and stuff. Like you talked about that lawyer, probably one of the big changes there was actually embracing the stuff that actually I need to let my other partners know, I need to know my team know that this is really important and you cannot touch it. So the relief is obviously like, oh cool, I've socialized it. So is there a big part there of actually understanding what is stopping these things happening as part of this process?
Yeah. I think it's, you got to understand where the weaknesses are and like what's stopping it from happening. And then, sometimes when you verbalize it with others, you realize that actually it's just all in your head as to why you don't actually go and do it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like you've got this, so many people would be like, oh, that doesn't look very professional if I disappear out in the middle of a working day. And it's like, yeah, but you also start at 7 and you don't finish till 6. So no one's questioning your work ethic.
Yeah.
It's like, when someone looks at it from the other direction or reframes it. So I think, you've actually got to talk about it. And, now more than ever, people are tired. It's been a long 3 years. People need to prioritize themselves a little bit. But
yeah,
I don't think any workplace, and that's like staff looking up or employers looking down, is going to question it. All they want is clarity. Do you know what I mean? So someone like disappearing off for an hour during the day and they're like, where did he go?
Where's
Do you know what I mean? They're going to have issues with that. If you said, I went for a swim for an hour. Oh yeah, cool.
And I'm going to do this every Tuesday at 12 or what? Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's actually like clarity, communication is kind of all the key things.
So is there a message here for business owners thinking about their own team here of going, actually, am I clear with my team and my staff? And look, I get it. Like some roles, you have to be on site, like a retail or hospital. I get that part. But is part of it making sure you are clear on what's acceptable in this sense? Or like, because as you said, like, I'm a lawyer, always on and I always available. Like there roles and stuff have stereotypes which can be good and bad. So it's part of that as an employer, making sure you've got a good environment to discuss that.
I think it's probably going to the next step as an employer, isn't it? It's understanding what kind of workplace you want to be and what kind of values you want to portray. So at the end of the day, most people can walk out the door now and ask for a pay rise from somewhere and they'll have another job. Yeah. What not all employer will offer is the value in being listened to and heard and understood, and creating a workplace environment where people actually, feel like they've got the opportunity to do things exactly like we just spoke about. So if you're a working parent, do you know what I mean? Finding some time in the day to go and do a bit of exercise, dragging out your lunch break a bit. Like we just said, yes, phones need to be answered, emails and all of that jazz, but there's no reason that you can't stagger a day or stagger a break period or whatever it is to make sure that you've got time for people like that to do those kind of things. So I think it's a great opportunity for employers to show a bit of forward thinking and create a bit of flexibility within the day. So with Beyond, we actually used to go to an accounting firm, and we used to do 10-week blocks of like boot camps, but we'd run it from from the actual office. So we'd go in, pick them up, so they'd finish at 4:30 on that day. We'd go do 45 minutes, and then they'd come back and all kind of go home. And we used to do that 2 times a week, and we used to do kind of blocks of about 10 weeks, and we'd do it kind of once or twice a year.
Yeah. So I think it's and I think it's interesting, especially we've had more and more people that when work from home, hybrid workplaces, whatever. But I do think there is culturally and societally, there's a more always available, always on mentality a little bit. We're all more connected than we've ever been. You can't escape your mobile phone, and so there is a immediateness. I think culturally we kind of expect sometimes, and I think we've got to be really careful of that, because as you said, Dave, like most things aren't urgent. Let's be brutally honest. If it was answered in an hour and a half's time, it's probably fine and stuff. But so I think it is really important from a business point of view of the habit you're kind of, you may say one thing but then you may encourage another if you're not like go, hey, I want this, but then habits of how people do going, oh, Dave didn't reply to my email 10 minutes ago. It's like, cool, it's an email. And
I guess that kind of like, so it leads into like lots of kind of more conversations, doesn't it, around just simple things you can be doing on a daily basis. So like, one of the best things I think about exercise is the fact that if you sit at your desk all day and you're working and it's quite intense working, you're actually quite isolated. So unless you go and have your coffees or your lunches with people, it doesn't really matter where you are. So like more and more people are working from home or doing that kind of things. So actually you need the social interaction. So the social interaction releases dopamine and endorphin to actually makes you feel better. So if you are at home all day, every day, don't underestimate the fact that actually you need to go and see.
Yes.
So you should be looking for some form of social outlet. So, I don't know, it could be a quiz night at the pub with a group of mates. It could be going to the gym with people. You actually need those things to help you like look after your health and wellness. So we had like our gym physio clinic was in the CBD. So we actually had heaps of office workers lunchtimes, but every lunchtime they'd come in and they'd just be like, this is just my thing,
Yeah,
but actually
for me,
it became as much about the social group as it did about the exercise.
Yes.
You learn the history. Oh, Hamish, how's the kids? Oh, so-and-so, what's going on there? Do you know what I mean? So it becomes that social connection that a lot of people lack.
Yeah.
Especially when you're busy parents. But then also, and this is something I didn't massively understand until I got this job. My God, you can be sedentary. Like, so when I was PTing, like full flight PTing, I was doing about 22,000 steps a day without doing any exercise.
Yeah.
I can struggle to hit 3,000 now. And it's not like I get home and sit on my ass. I've got a 3-year-old. I'm all over the show. So you're like, that's a humongous difference in just what's called like your NEAT output. So it's just like your exercise at rest, effectively.
Mm-hmm.
So just try to incorporate some form of like movement into your day. So here, for example, I have my catch-ups with Shelley, who's obviously my kind of direct manager. So we go for a walk. We go for a walk around the block.
Yes.
For that 30 minutes. And literally, people would think we're weird because we just do laps of the block. But it's...
the Christchurch office is very much a block. It literally
totally. But it's actually so good, get out, some fresh air, get some sun, do a bit of exercise. So it's like trying to incorporate those things into your day. And now not every workplace can do that. But park a little bit further away. Just do those little bits and pieces that give you the opportunity to just generally pick up your exercise is never ever going to be a bad thing, from releasing like good endorphins, all of that side of stuff as well.
It's funny you mentioned steps actually, Dave, because I noticed this about 6 weeks ago, probably 2 months ago, that my steps were not great on a daily basis, and part of it was winter. And one of the things I was like, right, I've got to, because I'm like you, I like a walking meeting. It makes me, I think there's the whole thing about creativity and thinking. The big proponent who was a big fan of walking meetings is Steve Jobs. Whenever a big decision was going to make, they used to go out for a walk. The other thing from a leadership point of view, it's quite good. It's not as formal. It kind of relaxes everyone a little bit, so you can have a bit more of an open conversation rather than you're this side of the table and I'm this side of the table like that. A table's a barrier. So there's whole benefits around that side of things. But I do, if I have a call that I will often go for a walk around the block while I'm on the phone to people, because, if I need to take notes, I can put it on my iPhone, whatever. Like it's, we've got technology now, but by just doing simple things like that, you can, as you said, Dave, a bit more movement, a bit more exercise. My steps are up now because I'm doing it. So, but it's recognizing, I guess, as you said, you've recognized that, whereas you could, if you're not kind of being aware or self-aware of what your environments may be creating, months could go by and that before you know it's a habit, and then you're into a place where,
and again, it's like just little changes every week
yeah,
amount to really big changes. So For both of us, we obviously have to drive to meetings. We have to go to meetings to meet people. If you're running early, park a little bit further away and walk in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I've always got time on my side. Like, I'm fearful of being late. So the chances are I'll normally get there and be like, right, I've got about 5 to 10 minutes to wait around. Don't sit in your car and flick through Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever it is. Do you know what I mean? Either go for a walk, park up a little bit early, because actually it's probably going to make you have a better meeting anyway, because you can actually like get the blood pumping, get the endorphins going, like you said, relax, kind of get yourself in the frame of mind for it. So I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's taking all of the little opportunities you can to ensure that, actually at the end of the week, you'll look back and be like, whoa, all of those little things really added up.
Make a big difference. Yeah. And I think it's one of the things you talked about with social and stuff. I think I mentioned a little bit earlier is there is so many distractions now in the world we live in, and carrying around this, a computer with us half the time is not helpful to that. And I think for business owners, part of it's being able to mentally switch off at the end of the day and park stuff in the sense of, I've always got to be available, always be on. So Apple have just done this thing where you can kind of change the mode of your phone, so it has different views and different focus modes, they call it. And I think I've just put that in place, and it's really good, I think, for just so I minimize all my like personal notifications, if that makes sense, when I'm at work. But flip side, make sure I have no work notifications when I'm past, I think 5:30, I haven't said it. But I think it's these mental parts is really important, that you're present with whatever you need to be doing. But also, I think it's just subtle cues of not drawing you back. And I guess it's what you talked about earlier. They're recognizing what might be distracting you or taking you away from the focus time or the prioritization of time that you had. Technology is a great helper with that, but also can be a massive hindrance for that, because if you're about to go out to the gym and you check your emails, you're like, oh no, I better reply to that. Then you've been taken off into another place or whatever. So you've got to work out, like when I go on holiday, I purposely delete my Outlook, delete Teams, so I do not check it, which is for the first few days I was picking up my phone going, why don't I pick my phone up? That's why. But it's interesting when you start doing some drastic things, but it's also, so I think technology is good, but for us as business owners and people in business, it can be a huge puller back to go, look at me, which is not always good.
Yeah, I think it's also one of those important things, isn't it? Like, I know we've spoken about it before, so like I have Outlook timed on my phone, so it turns off at a certain point and it only turns on at a certain point from a point of view of downloading. But it's also simple things as well, isn't it? Like thinking, well, that's what I do to protect myself.
Yeah.
I'll quite often work random hours here and there if I kind of feel like I need to, but actually timing the message to go out rather than sending it there and then.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So like, I might be working at 9 o'clock, but actually delay it to send at the right time the next morning to try and like help other people manage those things.
Yes.
Rather than like, wait a second, Dave's just emailed me at 9 o'clock at night. What's that about?
Correct. On a Sunday. Nothing better than that.
Yeah, so like delaying those things. But I think, so exercise is one thing, and this is something I got challenged with as well. So like I was obviously running the gym and the physio clinic and all of that side of stuff. It was a very social job, and I felt like switching into this role, it was still social, but not quite to the same degree. But it's actually realizing that because my job used to be so social, I used to do all my training on my own, because that was like Dave time. It was time for me to like process. Yeah. Whereas I guess now like work is still social, but not to the same degree as it was. That actually I now need to get my exercise as social with like other people. So it's like going to for me personally to like running groups or kayaking groups and things like that. So it's actually understanding you actually need a mix of like exercise, but social time in there as well. And I think people often see exercise as the be all and end all, but it's like, it's a collaboration of both, which is, where places like your F45s and all your kind of group gyms and things like that, they do have a place, because it's as much about the community side of it as it is other stuff. Just don't be a one-hit wonder. Go and ease your way into it and don't get injured within about 30 seconds. Otherwise, the physios just get it.
Correct. Is that what you did, Dave, in the business model? Is like, we just pumped them really hard and then we got the physio there just in case?
Now we set up just down the road from an F45, so we got them from there. We just then had the nice gym that eased them into it. Yeah, so that side, and then I guess, sorry, we're going to keep going now. Yep. Food is huge.
I was going to ask you about diet.
Huge.
Yeah.
And I kind of mentioned it earlier, but like breakfast is, in my eyes, one of the most important meals of the day. it sets you up for the rest of the day. And when I say that, it's not talking from a point of view of making you full. It's talking from a point of view of like, if you get a good healthy breakfast in that's got a good dose of protein and healthy fats, it just stabilizes your blood sugar level moving forward. And it's your blood sugar level that kind of controls those highs and lows and the swings. So I think it's really, really important to start that point well.
So what you said there, sort of pre-balanced breakfast, what would that look like, Dave? You know, let's really lean into your expertise here. What would be a night? What are the sort of you know, whether it's fruits, nuts, whatever, what is it that is a good balance?
So fruit is a real common, like, it can be a real misfire, eh? So fruit is essentially high in glucose, which is high in sugars. Yeah. So effectively, it's like eating a healthy Mars bar if you have a banana or something. Obviously, it's way better for you. It's got all your vitamins and minerals and things like that. But from a sugar point of view, you know, people give you bananas when you're doing racing, when you're doing a run or something like that, yeah? So actually, it's not that flash as a breakfast source. So that's where you go down like eggs, poached eggs, scrambled eggs, all of those side of things. Huge hits of protein, which will give you that kind of satiety for the day, make you feel full, but also just balances out those kind of sugar levels moving forward. So scrambled eggs on wholemeal toast.
Yep.
Or you can go into like your nut butters on toast or something along those lines, or some form of likely or granola, but keeping it again high in the protein and the fat side of things.
Yeah.
Eating well isn't
in this inflationary world. Yeah.
No, it's not. But generally the portions that you need of like good foods is actually less than the portion sizes you need of rubbish foods, because they fill you up, they make you fuller for longer, and so on and so forth. So yeah, starting that breakfast right, that's the key thing. And then really, this is where a lot of people I think go massively wrong from a weight management and general kind of healthy lifestyle point of view, is you should eat breakfast obviously well, but then lunch should be one of your biggest meals of the day, and dinner should be lighter.
And often people do, I'll grab something at lunch and then...
Yeah, they grab something at lunch, if not miss it altogether.
Yes.
They then snack pretty heavily when they get home because they're starving, whilst they're putting the kids to bed or doing whatever, you know, clearing off the kids' plates. And then they go and nail a huge dinner because they're starving. And then you've got all these calories coming into the body, and then you just go to bed and don't do anything with it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like thinking about how you reverse that. Caffeine is obviously kind of another real interesting one. So I'm an absolute coffee addict. I love it. It's great. Liquid gold. However, it fires up your fight or flight system, basically. It fires, which actually means that you stop metabolizing your food properly, and kind of starts to promote storing body fat. Yeah, so it can make you all like, you know how it makes you feel anxious?
Yeah.
Yeah. So effectively...
Yeah.
So effectively, it kind of kicks into that gear. You reach for a coffee, makes you feel anxious. So you do need to try and moderate your caffeine intake.
Are you talking to yourself here, Dave?
Yeah, I'm 100% talking to myself here.
Yeah.
But it's also one of those things. Some people can handle it, some people can't. So
yeah,
I think that kind of comes down to a bit of a personal.
Yeah, and you learn your lessons through coffee, isn't it? I never forget. I was in Ace years ago in Wellington, and it was like back to map meetings, like people don't coffee, and you're like, oh my goodness, and you get to like the third meeting, you're zoning out big time. You're like, that was a bit too much. But I think it's I guess the message there, Dave, because you see it with I just think the worst invention in life, energy drinks, is like cruxes for a quick fix, which then are just creating you're kicking the can down the hill, to be honest, in the sense of creating a problem for yourself. Whereas I guess what you're saying is, in some ways, when you talk about prioritization, prioritize just, and I know, like, we get it, like, me and Dave have young kids, and so we know it's like, can be chaos at 7 a.m. in the morning or earlier, but just having a good breakfast can actually set the stall for a good day, but then also monitor what you're doing by not going, I'll just have an extra cup of coffee and I know, again, as a parent, that is very tempting sometimes after 4 hours sleep.
And the key is just to do a bit of prep. It doesn't have to take long. You can prep 5 breakfasts in 5 minutes. 5 Tupperware containers, oats, protein powder in each one, some oat milk, it can be normal milk, whatever it is, a handful of nuts and seeds, bang, healthy breakfast, ticked off. All you've got to do is add do you know what I mean? The night before, bang it in the fridge, and there's one to take every morning.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to take long, and there's very flavoursome ways you can do it. There's heaps of recipes out there online. There's lots of things you can do. It's actually just, putting the time and effort into doing that. I know for me personally, and for our family, Florence eats a lot of eggs because we get up and do that. We make it part of our morning routine. Do you know what I mean? And Florence gets me up at crack of dawn. Yeah, as I'm sure you do. And we've only done it a couple of times. I can't believe I'm about to admit this on air. But there's some really, really good kids/adults yoga type things, Pilates things.
Oh
you can
yeah,
do on
I've
YouTube.
seen that.
Yeah.
And even
So it's
Les Mills do some stuff like that.
It kind of tells a story which keeps the kids engaged. They try and kind of follow along. But if you do it as well, it's actually it's not a bad little workout. And it's something that, what else do I do when I'm up with her at 6 o'clock in the morning? Do you know what I mean? And Soph's had a rough night with Ted. I'm going to be on deck doing something, so maybe that's something we can do together. And if you're teaching them healthy habits on, first things first, get some fitness done, get some health and wellness type stuff done, that's never going to be a bad thing, is it?
No, exactly. So, all right, Dave, I think we'll wrap it up there. And I think, all this sort of time, it takes maybe a bit of self-reflection from everyone to sort of look at it. But I think, as you said there, Dave, is don't try and change the world in one. Don't be a one-hit wonder. Don't try go big too early. Just do one little thing for a period of time and just cement that. Is kind of the first thing.
We've missed one massive one that we can't knock.
Oh,
alcohol.
Oh, do we have to talk about that?
We do have to talk about that. So, alcohol. Everyone's like, "Oh, reach for the low carb one. That'll be all right. That'll make it okay."
Problem solved.
Tick box. It isn't the carbohydrates in alcohol that's the issue, it's the ethanol, which actually makes up the alcohol. So ethanol is a poison. Yep, so your body instantly starts metabolizing the poison, stops metabolizing food, which is why you get the old beer guts going on.
Yes.
So it's actually really, really important that you do not drink just one glass every night of the week. Oh, just have one. Just have one.
I actually was at the doctor the other day, and she did the old chart. There was a chart, and she, they said, look, your advice is, I think it was minimum 2 or 3 days off a week is kind of what you should be doing from it, and obviously then monitor units and stuff, because there'll be a lot of people go, that's fine, but then you go and have a skinful on a Friday and Saturday night. That's just binge drinking. But it is easy, speaking from personal experience here, to tough day at work, blah blah blah. Just go and grab a beer or a glass of wine or whatever, and before you know it,
so more nights without alcohol than with alcohol, and that's literally just because if you have alcohol in your system, your food doesn't get metabolized properly, you're not getting energy the way you should. Natural depressant, not helping you. Wake up slightly hungover, definitely not going to go and put the first things first. So you actually not drinking when you get home from work is actually the first step towards having a productive tomorrow.
Jesus, there it is, Dave. There's
okay. That is literally the golden rule. And 9 times out of 10, if you've got a soda water or something like that in the fridge, that is that bad, that'll actually quench your thirst. You're actually just wanting something cold and fizzy. I don't know what it is about it, but it's the truth. Yeah. So that's where we'll wrap it up. And we'll wrap it up. I know that all the ladies in the Taringa office are now cursing my name because we actually had a chat about drinking habits last week.
But also, I think in some ways, is that a bit less? No, you don't want to go and stir the pot in your workplace about, let's talk about drinking habits. But also, I think, like you said, it's talking about well-being and stuff in an environment that obviously you feel comfortable with, and not saying portray any views or whatever. But talking about these sort of stuff in the workplace is actually a good thing to know that there's one support there for yourself and discuss how you help each other. And I know the town office is a great example where it's walk up, we're going up the mount, does anyone want to join us? Just little things like that can make a big difference to to your well-being, because you've kind of got someone helping you do it as well. I think, if that makes sense. So I think your environment at work is a big part of it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's a huge part of it. But I think just little things, first things first. Find that time for the exercise, or find some time for whatever it is. Find some time to prioritize you. It's probably the real key part. And there is always time within the day to do that.
Yeah.
I don't care what anyone says. And you actually have to just lock it out, make it happen, speak to your partner, do whatever you need to do. And then everything else will start to flow on from that.
Cool. Awesome, Dave. Thanks for your words of wisdom. As always, everyone, all the social media links and stuff are in the show notes attached to this podcast. If you did like this episode, please like and subscribe. It really helps us spread the good word. And make sure you do follow us on social media for any updates from Right Way. But check us out for our next episode next week. So thanks. Thanks very much, Dave.
Cool. All right. Speak soon.
Bye.